Conflict can have several meanings, but the central definition in each meaning is opposition, that is, when opposing viewpoints collide. In this video, we are going to look at conflict as something that has the potential to happen at home, at school, at work, or at gym or other places in the community. It happens when two people have opposing ideas about something. Conflict can be prevented through effective communication and resolved through negotiation and compromise. This video has 3 sections. In the first section, we will look at the attributes of effective communication. Learning to communicate effectively in verbal, nonverbal, and written form is key to building and maintaining healthy relationships, coaching effectively, facilitating support groups, collaborating with the care team, and documenting your work. Let's look first at nonverbal communication because it speaks volumes to others. It's kind of like that old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Your facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice communicate powerful messages. They can reflect emotions and attitudes that can be misinterpreted. As you talk with your clients, here are some behaviors to avoid: slouching, looking through your phone, keeping your arms crossed, whispering to others, having no emotion, and having too much emotion or speaking too loudly. Words often said in haste are hard to take back. Learning to communicate effectively takes self-confidence and practice. That's why we start early teaching children these valuable life skills. You've been practicing your communication style your entire life through social situations. They've helped you refine the way you interact with others. As a peer support specialist, it's important to learn when and how to hold your tongue. That is, when to speak and when not to speak. One of the most important communication skills you will use is to use person-centered language. That is, rather than saying an addicted person, say a person with a substance use disorder. Rather than saying a disabled child, say a child with disabilities. Rather than saying a high-risk youth, say a youth with multiple risk factors. As we think about effectively interacting with our clients, perhaps the most important thing to remember is to actively and empathically listen to them. That means focusing on the person and engaging with their message through your body language, looking at them straight in the eye, avoiding those behaviors we talked about in the previous slide. Take time to hear them out. Listen intently for what they are saying, and don't be afraid of the silence. When it's your time to respond, do so carefully. Clarify by restating or paraphrasing what they have said. This conveys that you did, in fact, listen. Avoid being judgmental. Make your responses relevant to the message you have heard, and use your lived experience wisely. Avoid taking the focus off the client's message. As a result of all your interactions over your lifetime, you have formed a belief system. Beliefs about things like faith in a higher power, for example. But you also have beliefs about other things, like the possibility of recovery, what it takes, and how to maintain it. Your personal beliefs have the potential to act as an obstacle to effective communication and your work as a peer support specialist. The content of this next section will cover some ways for you to evaluate your beliefs. A belief is an acceptance that a statement is true or that something exists. It is also trust, faith, or confidence in someone or something. Become aware of the beliefs you hold and the different parts of those beliefs. When we become adults, we begin thinking for ourselves, and it's time to evaluate the validity of those beliefs that we have been taught. For example, we may have been baptized in a specific denomination and taught all the rituals of it. Or perhaps we were brought up in a home with a mother or father who was strongly attached to one political party over the other, and they expect you to do the same. In the community, there has been a strong stigma about people with substance use and mental health disorders, and perhaps some of that has influenced your beliefs. The question is, when you become adult, how many of those beliefs are valid for you? Sometimes it requires us to release the emotions held in those beliefs, and if needed, break the bonds of faith that make that belief powerful. You have also developed beliefs about yourself, your appearance, your abilities, your future. These can be negative, self-doubting beliefs. These beliefs can interfere with communication, but they can impact your own recovery or that of your client. Self-doubting beliefs can be debunked. Remember, each person is the editor of their own story. I ask you, what is your story? What are the beliefs about your story? Find the point where those beliefs diverge from reality. Ask if your beliefs are really true or false truths. Always think self-appreciation versus self-depreciation. You can help your clients leave their old story behind, hopefully, just as you have. Here is an example of a negative belief that can cause conflict in the workplace. Let's say you encounter a company procedure or a protocol that conflicts with your beliefs or value system. Is this time to evaluate that belief for its validity, or should you just stand your ground and quit? Here is another example of a negative belief that can interfere with your helping others. You think your lived experience has taught you all you need to know to be an effective peer support specialist, and that conflicts with what you observe in the agency. What do you do? The last example of a negative belief pertains to your own recovery pathway. You think the things that you do to manage your own recovery should take priority over all other things. This is a tricky one, and one I'd like you to discuss this week with your recovery coach and others in the class on the discussion board. Conflict resolution is a way for two or more parties to find a peaceful solution to a disagreement among them. The disagreement may be personal, financial, political, or emotional. When a dispute arises, often the best course of action is negotiation to resolve the disagreement. Learning how to live successfully with others means learning how to negotiate and compromise. These are life skills that are learned early, but sometimes with wrong information or poor role modeling. A handout on conflict resolution has been placed in this week's reading section. In it, there is a website link to a lot more information on conflict resolution. It might be helpful to review that information because these principles of conflict resolution can be applied in every aspect of your professional and personal life. They can be applied in the peer-to-client relationship as well as client-to-client relationships. When conflict arises, it sometimes takes a third-party mediator to resolve the conflict. It is a dynamic process that guides the disputing parties toward a solution. Peer mediators, or someone who resembles the disputing parties, can be a powerful approach. The disputing parties must consent to the mediation, which will require their direct input. Identifying an appropriate mediator is key. It should be someone with the skills needed to guide the process. Peer support specialists can develop those skills and serve in that role. Mediators assist the disputing parties in establishing ground rules, framing the boundaries of mediation, detailing their stories, identifying issues, identifying options, discussing and analyzing solutions, adjusting and refining proposed solutions, and recording agreement in writing. Several examples of potential conflict are presented in the next few slides. The first example is about a conflict with your supervisor. As she is observing your work with clients, she corrects you on one of your behaviors. and based on your lived experience, you strongly disagree. What are the mediation methods that illustrate conflict resolution in this instance? Another example is that you see your supervisor violate a company policy. What are the mediation methods that illustrate conflict resolution in this instance? Let's say, as an example, your department is planning a departmental work retreat and attendance is mandatory. The organizers are planning an after-hours event and planning on serving alcohol. This would be a trigger for you. What are the mediation methods that illustrate conflict resolution in this instance? You are Protestant by faith and working with a group of peer support specialists of different faiths. One day, you observed one of your coworkers who is Muslim explaining the principles of the Muslim faith to their client. What are the mediation methods that illustrate conflict resolution in this instance? Another potential conflict may arise if a coworker asks you to cover a shift for her since she has a conflict in her schedule. This has happened a lot. What are the mediation methods that illustrate conflict resolution in this instance? The last example has to do with a coworker who makes an offensive comment or gesture toward you in a group setting. What are the mediation methods that illustrate conflict resolution in this instance? Conflicts may also arise between members of your support group. As the group facilitator, it is important for you to understand the concepts of negotiation and compromise and use these skills as you help to resolve any conflict that might arise. To prevent conflicts from occurring in the group, you can also establish group rules during the first session of the group. Here's how. First of all, go into the group with a cheat sheet. That is a list of things you think are important. But first allow the members to identify those things they think will aid the group process. If anything is missed, then you can add your items from the cheat sheet and ask the group if they agree. Once finalized, display the rules prominently and refer to them at the beginning of each session. This serves as a reminder to the group about what those rules are. Several of the expectations or rules should relate to conflict management, with the first and most important being remaining respectful and rational, or calm. If a conflict does occur, call the group's attention to the rules, especially the one about remaining calm. If emotion overtakes the room, no one will be able to think clearly. Allow each person to share their thoughts as long as they are keeping the group rules. There is a sample cheat sheet of group rules included as a handout in the reading sections for this week. Sometimes a conflict just ends with agreeing to disagree. As a departing thought, don't forget to watch the role play of group facilitation.